many of you know Jeremy, and Jeremy has served Cal Kappa quite a while. We really appreciate it. It still serves on our board. So on behalf of Cal Kappa as well and our full board, I do appreciate everybody jumping on and taking a look through this. But really thank you to Jeremy for your time to put all this together. It's really, really impactful what you guys are doing at CapK, what you guys have been able to achieve, and really setting a standard and setting the bar really high for how we track results, how we track outcomes, and how we tell our stories. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing this with us. I hope folks on the call and also folks watching this later are able to take all this great information and move it into their agency as well. So thank you guys. Thanks, Lawrence, for putting this together. It's great to see everybody on here. Thanks so much.
Welcome, everyone. This is a presentation on the strategic plan update for CapK, Community Action Partnership of Kern, and how we ran through our process for our strategic plan update a few years back, and some things we learned, and I'd share some of the process we followed and what we learned from that, and what we're preparing to do for our new strategic plan update coming up here shortly. As you can see in our date there, 2021 to 2024. So we're just now beginning the early phases of a strategic plan update. And you'll notice that we did a 4-year strategic plan, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here. You know, people think that's kind of a weird number of years. Why are you guys being weird, you know? And it's like, well, I'll explain that here in a little bit. Let me start. Did I start that? Okay. So also I want to note in the chat box, I put a link to our strategic plan on our website, and you can click that link, and if you want to see the document, it turned out pretty good. It's a good document. You'll see a little bit of it here in the presentation. And it also has a below the document, if you go to the bottom of the screen, it has another button about tracking progress, and you click on that button and it'll pull up our dashboard and show how we're tracking progress in our strategic plan. We'll talk a little bit about that too, because we have a certain platform we use to track our strategic plan progress. And the online version, when you click and you can see it, is you can see some high level overviews of how we track progress and how we're doing. It doesn't have everything. There's some behind the scene notes for staff, you know, notes and things, and you can't see all that, but you can see kind of a general progress report on our strategic plan at that link, on that link. So first thing with our strategic plan is you know, I think reflecting back on previous plans, and not just our strategic plan, but what as an agency, other plans we've developed and whatnot. So as we're preparing for the update of our strategic plan this time, we're kind of going through this right now. We went through this before we started our strategic plan process last time, is we started brainstorming, okay, what needs to be included? So we started looking at community action network initiatives such as ROMA and CSBG, performance indicators, org standards, things like that. Areas of needed focus on, you know, theory of change, community, family, and agency. We looked at our previous plan, and we changed it a little bit. You know, when we reviewed our previous plan, we wanted more targeted goals and objectives. We shortened our cycle, as I was talking about earlier. We had a 5-year cycle last time. We dropped it to 4. The reason being is when we went through our plan, our previous strategic plan, is we were getting close to 4 or 5 years. We started feeling like it just was out of date. Like we had kind of gone through things and it needed to be updated. So we kind of had that feeling as we got close to 5 years that really it should be updated. We're ready to update this thing because we thought things changed a little more quickly nowadays than a 5-year cycle. So, and we thought 3 would be too short. So the group settled on 4. Let's do a 4-year cycle. See how that feels. So we're trying that out this time. We wanted to increase our frequency of reporting and how we report out to our board and funding sources. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We digitized our reporting and our performance tracking. I just mentioned that. There's a link at the bottom of our website, our strategic plan listed on our website. At the bottom, there's a link to our dashboard that you can access, and you can take a glance at how that's looking as far as our digitized format we're using. we looked at what worked in our plan. We achieved many of our goals from our previous plan. We looked at it and we're like, hey, we got like 96% success rate on our goals and we achieved them. However, there was some goals we wanted to carry over to the new cycle, and there was a few we just we couldn't finish. And so recognizing those, what we wanted to carry forward and what we wanted to carry into the new strategic plan. Some lessons we learned, we had pretty good communication and buy-in from our upper management and board, but we thought we could do better. So this plan, we'll talk about that. I'll show you how we improved our communication and our buy-in from our board members, senior staff, and line staff as well, and the community. We wanted to make sure we had intentional engagement with our leadership team and our goal leads, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we wanted to tie our goals to all applicable services, enhancements, system-wide. And I'll explain how we do that, how we tie it back to what we do. And some improvements we made moving into this plan, as I talked about, we were a little more realistic in our goal setting. We thought that some of our goals were maybe a little too broad. And even in this cycle, we're finding that, well, was that a good goal? Is it attainable? Is it too broad? Is it too narrow? Things like that. And then, as I mentioned, we enhanced our monitoring and evaluation. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So here's our cover for our strategic plan. And again, you can notice the 4-year cycle that we just talked about. So strategic planning overview. So as we started developing our strategic plan and looking into, developing a new strategic plan, our first objective was to create a strategic plan for CAPK to improve effectiveness and sustainability over 4 years, and aligning with a 10-year vision. And I'll show you that here on a slide in a minute. So we felt 4 years would be a more realistic time frame for us. And again, this is, when you develop a strategic plan, it should be yours, whether it's 3 years, 5-year plan, 6-year plan. We felt 4 years would be better, and that's what we did this time. And we'll analyze that as part of our strategic plan development for the next cycle. Was 4 years adequate? Was it too short, too long? How do we feel about it? We utilized ROMA framework to inform framework to meet CSBG requirements and connect investments to our clients' outcomes. So we'll talk about that, how we built the ROMA framework into our strategic plan. It's results focused. We spend a lot of time measuring outcomes. We want to make sure our plan sets achievable outcomes and timelines and that we're meeting those. So I'll show you how we're measuring progress and how it's visible and transparent to everybody. And barriers, you need to understand what your barriers are to achieving your goals. And funding is one example. Funding oftentimes is a barrier to successful goal achievement. So we wanted to be realistic in how we set those goals, and also being able to watch your progress and pivot if you need to. So obviously the strategic plan is an opportunity to revisit your mission and vision. And we didn't change our mission and vision hugely from our previous plan. I mean, I think we tinkered with it a little bit. And you want to make sure your mission and vision meet your needs, current needs and future needs, and that aligns with the work you're doing. So we spent a little bit of time. We reached out to other community action agencies, the national office. We talked about what people liked about mission and vision statements at the local community action level and the national level. And we incorporate some of those thoughts into our version. We'll continue that philosophy with our new update or our strategic plan as we prepare for our cycle coming up. If you look at the vision, one of the things we tinkered with was, we talked about achieving greater self-sufficiency, which is a pretty common vision in community action. But we spent a lot of time debating, is self-sufficiency a good word? Should we leave it in there? Should we take it out? What is self-sufficiency? How do you define it? And we came up with these words in our planning and communication with our staff and board. We kept talking about, well, American dream, people have an American dream. So finally we decided, hey, let's include that in our definition or of our vision. And we added to the end greater self-sufficiency and attain their version of the American dream. Because when you think about it, that describes what everybody's goal is. They have a goal in their life, a plan, and really, how do you articulate that? Because everybody's is different. Well, it's one thing you can do is refer to as the American dream. It's not really important. And I even talk about this in our new employee orientation. I tell them, we don't care what people's American dreams are, and everyone's is different. If you had 1 million people in the room, you'd probably have 1 million different versions of what that American dream is. So that's not what's important. What's important is making sure we're taking barriers down and removing barriers and helping them get to that, putting them in a position to be able to achieve that dream, whatever that is. So when we developed and looked at our mission and vision, I think one of the things I want to note is we were very intentional in our wording, and words matter. So very specific words matter. And it's okay to spend time debating and wordsmithing because that's really important to a strategic plan. And I mentioned earlier, we wanted to tie it to our 10-year vision. So one of our board members brought this up, and we were talking about using a 4-year strategic plan horizon. And he said, yeah, but 4 years, how do we know we're staying on track with long-term projects that are really going to be outside of the 4-year vision, 4-year timeline? And so we developed kind of just some 10-year benchmarks just to keep us grounded in certain areas that, hey, these aren't going to be 4-year projects. And it was low-income housing, which we really hadn't been involved in. That was a new endeavor we wanted to achieve. We wanted to develop workforce development initiatives. And then this was kind of a fun one. We want to be the premier community action agency in the Central Valley. You always want to throw fun ones like that in, but that also, these visions keep us grounded and make sure as we're working through our strategic plan, some of these we know are going to take longer and they're long-term visions for the agency. So we kind of put that in there. And again, you want your strategic plan to reflect your agency and your community. And there's no right or wrong answer to how you develop this. So we thought this was important to get this in there. And so we added that to our strategic plan. As part of our pre-work to our strategic plan, we brought together all of our executive team and we developed a set of organizational values. We felt as we worked through our strategic plan, there was going to be lots of meetings, lots of time being spent together. And we wanted to first set the foundational element of what are our organizational values. They're going to be reflected in the work we do, how we work together, how our strategic plan is formed, and how we implement our strategic plan. You have those foundational values. And if you look at that, it's, they're just kind of organizational values that aren't really necessarily have to be part of the strategic plan, but they're part of our values and how we developed it. You can see it talks about respect, teamwork, transparency, continuous improvement, servant leadership. We want those to resonate throughout our agency and not just resonate in our plan, but just in the work we do on a daily basis, how we work between staff, how we work with our clients, our community members, our outside organizations. This drives our organization and how we conduct ourselves. So we also value various voices of all who have a say in the work we do as an agency. And that includes staff, partners, clients of all various experiences and backgrounds. So we cast a huge net, a very broad net out in the community. And I'll talk a little bit here in the slides about different, surveys and different things we did. But we wanted to make sure we had a really large tent full of people when we were talking about planning for our strategic plan. And we wanted to make sure we were being collaborative. And I think the worst trap you can fall into is your strategic plan saying, well, we got to get this done. It's due. We need to do one. So you end up with a room with, maybe me and a couple of executives and maybe the board chair, talking about, hey, what are we going to stick in this thing and have the board approve it? And, you can do it that way. I suppose there's nothing technically wrong with it. As long as you develop, put the stuff you need to in the plan. But if you're going to go through the motions of developing a strategic plan, you might as well really treat it like a strategic business plan for your agency. And you'll see in some slides ahead how we use it. We wanted to spend the time on writing a good plan because we use it on really, I'm not exaggerating when I say really on a daily basis, we use our plan. And it's a guidebook, it's a map, it's a business plan, like a private business would use to guide how we're moving forward, how we're conducting our business, and how we see the future for our business. So it's important to collaborate and get a very large tent of people involved. When we can, this is the phasing, this is how we phase through our planning effort of the strategic plan. And one note I want to say is when we did this 3 or 4 years ago, it was remote at the time. That's when COVID hit. So most of our meetings for this round of our strategic plan, this session was remote. But we were able to do it remote and it worked fine. And even our board retreats were remote. So everything we did was remote during this cycle. So I just wanted to note that, but you can see we went through different things. We went through preparation, defining process parameters, establishing a planning committee. We went through some typical assessments of compiling core data resources, conducting your SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You always want to do that. Perform an agency review. And then we entered into the planning phase, and I'll blow that slide up here. Oh, wait. Okay. I was supposed to click through these. So we went through these different things, planning, pre-planning, contracted with RDA Consulting. RDA Consulting is the consultant we use to help formulate our strategic plan. We formed an internal CAPK planning committee. We did our SWOT assessment, which included focus groups, interviews with staff and outside partners. We conducted an all staff survey. We had about 490 completed, which is pretty good. I mean, at the time we may have had maybe 850 employees. Community needs assessment, we analyzed, of course, data, census data, et cetera, client surveys, staff surveys, partner surveys, interviews, et cetera. And then we got into planning activities with our board leadership retreats and planning task force, which I'll show you here on the next slide. This kind of blows up into that. As we went along this planning timeline, we had 3 board retreats with the board and the leadership team to prioritize strategic issues and develop goals and objectives. We had at least 3 working meetings with our planning groups, work groups, and our consultant RDA. And then we got into the phase of writing the plan with the consultant. And so then through that process, we developed critical issues. And you can see we're referring to the 3 categories that at a national level, the family, community, and agency level. We kind of categorized them by that. And through primary and secondary research, we identified all the critical areas of that are needed in the community that we found in the community, and we divided them in amongst the 3 categories, and we developed 6 goals. So this kind of leads in, you can see these goals start developing. There's 2 in the family level. There's 1 in the community level with a couple of sub items under it. And then there's 3 goals in the agency level, which we developed as critical. Well, they start as critical issues, and we developed these into goals right here. This list of category critical issues we developed those into our goals. So this is the goals that we came out of from our critical issues for our strategic plan. We had ended up with 6 goals, and I won't necessarily read them all to you, but basically, I'll summarize them real quick. Healthy, affordable food to support the health of the communities we serve. Access to high quality early learning, childcare choices to meet the diverse needs. Advance economic empowerment and financial stability for low-income people in the communities we serve. And that's a pretty broad goal. And I'll get into, that caused us I think a little hindsight, some grief just because it was so broad. We want to be the employer of choice and attract and retain high quality workforce. We want to increase utilization of data-driven decision-making processes to improve our capacity and achieve results. And we want to increase the fiscal health and stability of our agency so we can properly align our resources and support clients and build capacity in our staff. So to ensure we have maximum participation and engagement, we took those 6 goals and we assigned them typically to a chief, or a director, and staff as contributors and board members as well. They meet, so we developed these leadership teams to handle each goal and to review each goal. And we're using our existing board of director committees to have each goal group report out based on their goal. So I'll give you an example, like goal 6. So we had assignments, we had our leadership over here in our goals, and they were each assigned a goal, each of our leadership members. So they were the lead for each goal. So goal 6 is an example, is physical health of the agency, building unrestricted funds, etc. And so that goal group regularly reports to Budget Finance Committee. You can see our different committees and board meetings here. So they frequently report to the Budget and Finance Committee, and we have used our digital reporting and planning and embedded that into our reporting, and we report out to our boards and committees on a regular basis. You can see we use templates and our On Strategy platform. That's our electronic platform we use to monitor our strategic plan. And I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. And we communicate with all levels, with the working groups, the leadership, the board, and staff. So I'll show you some examples here of how our reporting looks like. I won't go through each goal, but I'll show you a couple of examples here. So I'll show you like goal 1. Increased access to healthy, affordable food to support the health of the communities we serve. And again, so we note it's at the family level. And this is what it looks like on our web-based program that tracks our progress. Is you have our goal listed here, and you have the completion rate of the goal, and you have our tasks here, goal 1, and then strategically 1.1 and 1.2. And it shows you who the leads are, start dates, etc., and whether or not they're on target. So at this time, when I did the snapshot, we were 58% of the way through the reporting period, and they had accomplished right around 57%. It shows they're on target, green. If they are off target, somewhat it shows as yellow, and critical means they're way off. And that's okay if they're not on target, because it's a living, breathing document, and we are okay if things aren't working out. We either pivot to try and get it to work out, try and reach our goals, or we follow that and track it, and it's going to get either changed or cleaned up or changed, maybe even at our next strategic plan cycle. So it's okay if they're not on target. You know, it's a plan, it's a document, it's meant to be a little bit nimble, and we can change as needed. So I'll show you another example of another goal. We'll look at maybe goal 3. Here, let's see. Goal 3, advance economic empowerment and financial stability for low-income people in the community we serve. And you can see we identify increased housing stability for people who experience the risk of homelessness, increase our capacity to provide long-term affordable housing, increase opportunities and supports for clients to advance through career and educational pathways, and increase access to economic asset enhancement and financial educational opportunities. This is that goal I told you was really big. And you can see in our progress, we have some green, and we have some yellow, and we have some red. And I think in hindsight, as we move into our new strategic plan session, we're going to look at this goal. It's probably too broad of a goal. I mean, advance economic empowerment and financial stability for low-income people in the communities we serve. And we're talking about creating affordable housing, serving homelessness, career pathways, things like that. They're just enormous in their own, and they're all under this one goal. So you can see some they're on target with. Some are green, some are yellow, they're lagging a little bit, and then some just, it's critical. They're not, they're not keeping up with the timeline, which, like I said, it's not it's okay. It's, you know, it's a measurement, it's a tool we're using to measure, and we'll roll that into our new strategic plan update. If we'll assess that and we'll see if we want to roll it into our new strategic plan update. So if you look at goal 4, employer of choice is another example. And you can see these are all green right now. And I'll say about this goal 4, wanting to be the employer of choice and attracting and retaining high quality workforce employees. It's so important right now, for our company and for the network. This one, this one is front and center for our board. So our board's very interested in this one, and it gets a lot of face time with our board. And so our board is seeing a lot of this goal, and because as we share numbers with our board about employee counts and employee retention and onboarding employees and losing employees, they're seeing those numbers where we're not keeping up with our employee numbers, and we have hard to fill positions for sure. You know, of our 950 positions here or employees at CapK, we probably have 100 vacancies right now. So, and we've been stuck at right around 100 for a few years now. We're starting to close that gap a little bit, but it's something that's been very important, and that's been something the board's been very involved in. And you can see that this one, we're on track. We're moving forward with some plans and some ways to increase our employment numbers. So let me jump to slide 27. So I'll skip through I won't go through every goal with you, all the 6 goals, and you can see each goal has our progress report, and you can see that on our website if you want to see that in more detail. So as part of the plan, we incorporate community action initiatives such as results-oriented management, ROMA model, and we use ROMA to assess our work, to review outputs, and I mentioned the word pivot. We pivot as needed monthly, so we can review program performance from our board and committee standpoints. So we follow the ROMA model. It's built into what we do in our strategic plan. We're continually assessing, planning, implementing, evaluating, and coming back around again. It's just a continual process. So the ROMA and the national performance indicators are a requirement to follow anyway, so you might as well build them in your strategic plan, and it's all built in there. So we follow this model, and we follow it closely, and we think it's important and vital to what we do. So we practice, as mentioned above, we ensure up-to-date communications. We use various methods of communication. A great example is aligning our strategic plan with our daily work and having our staff identify specific goals in, say, like memos to the board. So you can see this blue box at the top. We communicate with our board several ways. We have normal implementation updates quarterly to our board, where we talk about the strategic plan on a quarterly basis. We update them on all the goals, how the strategic plan is looking, how the goals are performing, and we show them benchmarks and we share data with them. And that's on a quarterly basis. And as we go through annual board retreats and things like that and training sessions, we're always showing progress and identifying course changes that we might need when we talk to the board and suggesting course changes in order to meet a goal. Every memo we write to our board, well, pretty much every memo we write to our board, there might be a few exceptions, but our staff memos to our boards are regularly, you might have a memo that in the body, it might talk about, the background of the topic. It might have a fiscal impact, et cetera. Well, we always, in our staff meeting memos, we include a strategic plan assessment on every memo we send to the board. So if we're taking a new contract to the board, a new program, we tie it back to our strategic plan every time. And we talk about how that ties back to our strategic plan, how it ties back to the work we're doing, why we're presenting this to the board, why we think it's a program the board should approve or adopt. Everything's tied back. And what that does is it regularly reminds the board about the strategic plan. It continually enforces the strategic plan, the importance of it, that we're using it as a plan that we laid out as a group, and we're following that plan, and it continually enforces that. We have a strategic plan oversight committee. They compile and deliver regular updates to the board. As I mentioned earlier, they use our agency scorecard, which I talked about, and you saw some little snippets of it. We continually update the board, continually share those scorecards with them. We can convene work groups as needed. If an issue comes up and regarding a goal and we're not meeting it, or there's an issue regarding a goal, we elevate those issues and we'll create work groups as needed. And we collaborate with the existing work groups to develop annual plans, action plans, and ad hoc problem solving. So we kind of empower these groups. Hey, you're in charge of your goal. Talk about how, make sure you have a plan and how you're going to report that out. Assess your goals. If you're falling behind on goals and goals aren't being met or not working well, how do you come up with an action plan, develop a problem solving plan, and move forward? So we in our groups, our goal groups are made up of staff and board members. So we assign a board member to each group, kind of an oversight board member, kind of a representative liaison to the board. We usually have both horizontal and vertical inclusion in those work groups. So horizontal meaning if it's a finance issue, it's not just all finance people in that work group. It's people horizontally throughout the agency in that work group. And then vertically, it's not just the CFO and their assistant. It's not just a division director. It's a vertical alignment of staff all the way from line staff, entry level staff, all the way up through the CFO, through the chief. So these committees are both horizontal and vertically representative of our entire work group. And then as we get close to ending here, we consider our strategic plan to be resilient. And our strategic plan is all about planning for unexpected events and ensuring our agency can adapt and continue its mission. We want to make sure we identify risks, plan responses, and prepare resources, plan actions to reduce risks such as preventive measures, outline steps to take if a contingency occurs, including crisis management and communication, integrate contingency planning and overall strategy for the agency, monitor implementation and report on plan effectiveness through frequent communication, regularly test and review plans to ensure effectiveness, learn from experience, and improve plans over time. So that gives you kind of a brief summary of our strategic plan. Let me open up so this is the link I shared with you. It shows our strategic plan, and you can flip through this document. And at the bottom below is the Learn More button. This is the button I was sharing with you, I was talking about earlier. And let me pull it up here. And this is our dashboard. So you can see our 6 goals are listed here, and we allow the public, anyone, to come in and access information about that goal, how we're doing in that goal, percent completed, different goals. And again, this isn't our entire dashboard. It doesn't have the behind the scenes notes and different things that staff use, but this is a snapshot dashboard for the public to see. And we make that available to the public. And it's important. It's an important part of our strategic plan. So there you have it. We have the CAPK strategic plan, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has, and see if I can answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeremy. I've got a question for you, but I'll hold on to that for just a second. So, does anybody have any questions for Jeremy regarding the material that he's presented on so far?
I have a couple of them. So your green, yellow, and red categories, or your critical category, or your safe and passing categories, your strategic plan oversight committees meet every so often and rate that, or how does that work? Like, how do you come up with those scores?
So they, yeah, in our digital platform we have, they, let me give one of the examples here. So they go through and they take our objectives and tasks. In fact, let me see if I can get this thing to advance. So I'm thumbing through our strategic plan. It's moving slow. And you guys can browse through this. It's actually a pretty cool strategic plan. It turned out pretty nice. So as you can see, here's a goal. So we have our goal up here, goal 2. We have our objectives and tasks below that goal. So goal 2, 2.1, 2.11. And it has very specific tasks. Like I'll take 2.1.1a, assess needed investment required to increase opportunities for all families needing extended hours of service. So they go through and they do an assessment, and that when that task is done, it ends up being completed and will show as being completed. So they go in and monitor that, and you know, if they're halfway done, then they show 50% progress or whatever. But they're very specific tasks. And they input that data into our monitoring device and show, you know, are they progressing through these? You know, 2.1.2 number 8, partner with school districts and childcare providers. So these are specific tasks that they are in charge of ensuring gets done, and they measure that progress, and it goes into our electronic platform, and we can track that. And it's not meant to be vindictive or gotcha moments or anything. We want them to use this as a tool, a business tool. And there's no reason to hedge and to cheat and say, well, let's just say we got it done. I mean, everybody, this is a living document for our agency. And if it's something they're having trouble getting done, then they report that out and it'll show red or whatever. And they're like, hey, this isn't, you know, this task is not doable. Or maybe there's financial constraints, physical constraints where it's like, you know, we don't have the money for this. We thought we were going to get a grant, it never came through, and we don't have the money for this. So that all goes into our assessment of our current plan. We assess that on an ongoing basis. We see, do we need to adjust that? Do we need to adjust the task? Do we need to pivot a little bit? Do we need to go, you know, try something different? Or is it just a task that ends up not ever being done, and maybe we assess at the end and we maybe carry it forward, or say, no, that wasn't even a viable task to begin with, you know? So it's, you know, there's no right or wrong answer. And it's not, you know, written in stone on how each goal group will monitor a task and make sure it's completed, because we want them to take ownership of it and use it in a very productive manner. We don't want any of our work in our strategic plan, including our work on these objectives and tasks, to be a check the box thing, like, oh, let's just, you know, hire someone to do a assessment and get it done. We want them to be involved in it, and we want them to acknowledge, hey, we're getting this done, it's working, and it's bringing, you know, this item forward, or it just doesn't work, and why it doesn't work. And they need to assess that internally, continue that feedback loop. You know, Roma talks about assessing and continually analyzing and offering feedback. And that's how we have our goal group set up. So they're continually following that cycle of assessment, documenting, tracking, assessment, et cetera, and following through. So you can see they just follow through on these, they follow these very definitive objectives and tasks, and they monitor their progress through that online portal.
That's great. And then the other question I had was, so those, what you just showed us on the website is accessible to the public. So how do you let the public know besides having it up on the website? How do you let them know that that's available for them to see and assess and offer comments on?
Well, there's various ways, our board meetings are open to we're a Brown Act agency, so everything we do is super transparent. We talk about our strategic planning at our board meetings on a daily, or on every meeting it comes up either in our memos or we're doing a goal group update. As I referred to, every memo we take to the board refers back to our strategic plan. We had many outside partners that helped us on the strategic plan and gave us feedback in our surveys and assessments. They often refer to our strategic plan on progress. And between, on social media, we post, when we accomplish a big thing and a big item from our strategic plan, if we were to all of a sudden if one of our strategic plan goals was to open affordable housing complex or develop affordable housing, if we were to open a 50-unit affordable housing complex, we wouldn't just promote that, but we'd promote that, part of our strategic plan as an agency, and we'd promote that this is meeting our community strategic plan that we developed, and we promote it every chance we get. So we want our staff continually talking about it, our board talking about it. We share it publicly. It's how we operate. It's part of our agency operational, standard operational procedure. So, it's not to say that everyone in the community knows about our strategic plan and knows as well as our staff does, but we use every opportunity possible to for the public to see it and know what we're doing and knowing what we're up to.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Jeremy, did you said you worked with which corporation to help you develop your strategic plan? It was
RDA, it was called. It was
RDA.
yeah.
Did they also help you with your dashboard for your website, or did you do that in-house?
We developed that later in-house, and I think they were already completed by the time we developed that. But I was really, we were happy with the work RDA did. I think they were I want to say maybe out of Chicago. I'm not sure if that's right, but I want to say maybe it was. But they did great work. We were a little hesitant about our strategic plan this last cycle since it was during COVID, and we're like, strategic plans definitely, especially board retreats and stuff, you're thinking, oh, we've got to do that in person. So we did this whole thing remote, which was kind of odd, but it worked. And this next round, we're getting ready to update. Obviously, we won't be following those protocols. We'll be in person, but they did, considering all things being equal. Yeah, we were really pleased with the work RDA did. If you want contact information, I can give it to Lawrence. He can share it with the group.
Perfect. Are you going to use them again for your next strategic plan?
Well, we don't know. I mean, we'll invite them. We'll probably do an RFP and see what's out there.
Oh, got it.
Either RFP or maybe a request for qualifications, you might call it. We'll see what's out there. I wouldn't be opposed to using them again.
Okay.
But, I think we're really deliberate about all of our processes on our strategic plan. So when we start preparing and we get together as a group, that's one of the things we'll talk about is, how do we what help do we need? Did we like the work RDA did? Do we want to engage them again? Do we want to include them in a request for qualifications? That'll be part of our preparation phase in our deliberate conversation around how do we want to plan for the strategic plan. So it'll be something we'll all discuss as a group.
Perfect. I like the way it was laid out. I'm going to share it with our GM too. I think ours ends.
Yeah, it's laid out really nice. I
It's
encourage
really
you. I
fun.
know you're probably thinking you're all, who wants to go look at someone else's strategic plan, but it really
I'm a
is.
nerd. I kind of do.
Yeah, I would encourage you, it's laid out really, I was really happy at the end, with just how it's laid out, and I'm kind of flipping through pages here, but it just, when you read through it, it all kind of flows really nice, and it all makes sense, and it kind of all funnels down, and you get to the goals and the objectives, and it all just kind of makes sense as you work your way through it. And how we, how we analyzed the data and did surveys and things in ahead of time, and just it's laid out very nicely. I was very happy with the outcome of it, how it looks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I do appreciate it. And like I said, I think ours is over in 2025. I should know this off the top of my head. But I know we're gonna start getting ready to, go back out to procurement, etc. So I would definitely share this with our GM.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm messing with my screen here.
That's
Uh,
okay.
Yeah. And I'll get you, like I said, I'll track down the contact information, have Lawrence send the contact information out. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I'm really happy with the work they did. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be the executive making the decision. I want to say, heck yeah, we're using them again, because it's a group discussion
Mhm.
with our board and our executive team and our staff on, hey, how do you think, did you like it? What did you like about the strategic plan? What did you not like? So that's all part of the assessment that goes in the mix. And, just because I liked them and I liked the outcome, there might be several people in the room that say, wait, hold your horses. I didn't like it so much. So we don't know. We don't know what everyone's gonna say. So we'll see.
How long did it take from beginning to end? From like the beginning initial meetings to a final product?
I mean, it took us it took us a year.
Okay.
And we weren't rushing it, and we were very deliberate about it, and we're starting the early preliminary process right now for our next cycle. So we're gonna do some, I think, some preliminary training with staff. Kind of like I mentioned in one of the slides. Let me go back. I hope I'm not making anyone dizzy. Let's see. Yeah, when we did our organizational values, when we got together as a team, that was kind of before RDA came in. We
Mhm.
sat down as a group of executives, and one of our staff led us, and we went through a couple of days of kind of workshops and trainings, because we wanted to set this foundational stage of organizational values. And we're kind of at that phase right now where we're going to start preparing some internal stuff before we hire a consultant. And I don't know if we're going to do this exact same exercise, but we're going to do some early training with our executive team. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. I thought I had it written in my notes. There's a specific training platform we're going to use. I think it's called Smarty Training, maybe. We have a consultant here locally that's going to take us through the Smarty training. And what it's doing is we're going to start the early process of our executive team that's starting to get the juices flowing and thinking about strategic thinking and thought process. And then this last cycle, the cycle before, what we did was we put together this organizational values, because we thought maybe we didn't have a solid organizational value list of values. And so we took some old ones and we cleaned it up, and that's what we spent our time doing, working as a team. In preparation for the strategic plan was, hey, let's develop some core organizational values, not only to guide us in our daily work, but how we're going to go through the strategic planning process. What's going to guide us. And so we came up with these 5 items and kind of wordsmithed them, and we're going to go through something similar this year, but it's through this Smarty training. And I don't know all the ins and outs about it. We're still kind of working on it, but that's how we're going to kick off kind of our strategic planning thought process. And then we'll roll into hiring a consultant and start the process. But all said and done, it's about, it usually takes us about a year. We'll probably have a board, we'll probably have a board retreat or two later this year, or maybe very early in 2025, depending on how our cycle ends up looking. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Jeremy, I have a quick follow-on to that. I know a lot of agencies consider using a consultant when they're doing their strategic plan, and it sounds like you mentioned pulling together an RFQ or an RFP. What are some of the things that you and your staff look for in a consultant to assist with strategic planning?
Yeah, good question. Well, they have to understand, one of the first things we do is we want them to understand, we want to develop, they have to be patient and have the time to work with us on a plan that's meaningful and is something that we can use on a daily basis. Like I said, there's a lot of agencies that want to do the minimum requirement for a strategic plan. I suppose that's okay. I mentioned that. And there's probably consultants that come in and tell you, oh, we can get a strategic plan knocked out for you in a couple months. And we've done 1 million of these and they seem kind of cookie cutter. And that's just not what we don't want to waste our time doing that. So we'll definitely look for a consultant that will take the time to understand our unique abilities and needs and resources as an agency and develop a strategic plan that's unique for us. That'd be number one. And one that understands that this work's important for us and that the strategic thinking and words that go into the strategic plan matter and are important. So, I think those are a couple of big, items we'll look for in a consultant. That can handle, and that can handle a large, we're fairly large agency, 950 employees. We have about 19 programs. And our board's our board is 15 people. So it's a diverse organization running diverse programs, serving diverse population. So diversity and able to relate to a diverse agency's, front and center for us. So I think there's several important things we'll look for. We'll definitely want to look at some of their prior work, see what they've done. Yeah, so that kind of gives you an idea of what we'll be looking for.
All right, thank you. And Jeremy, do you have any last remarks, anything that was coming to mind as we were wrapping things up here today?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for attending. I will I'll get the information out to you, Lawrence, on the consultant we utilized. As you go through your performance indicators, performance standards, ROMA, different things, I think, in conclusion today, I'll just say, you want to incorporate all this stuff together in your strategic plan. And our agency is going through Pathways to Excellence right now. We're on the silver tier, and all these things we talked about, ROMA and different things, that continues to come up. And I think one of the things people talk about in the Pathways to Excellence, and I think our strategic plan tries to push this, is your requirements and your standards are not excellence. Those are minimum requirements that you meet to be a community action agency. If you really want excellence, you have to go beyond that. And you have to excel in different areas. And so when you're developing your strategic plan, you should keep that in mind, that you're going to follow these standards and follow the ROMA standards and different standards of excellence. And you should be following those standards. But if you really want your agency to excel and go beyond that, you need to use that as your baseline and think about, how you can exceed those basic standards. So anyways, thanks for joining. And I was happy to present this. And if anyone ever has any questions about the strategic plan, feel free to email me. directly if you want, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you for your time today.
All right, have a great day, everyone.